It is difficult for a Christian to see Christ in another person because the church deliberately focuses on one version of the risen Christ and deliberately downplays the other version of the risen Christ, where Christ comes back as another person. Even Paul was struggling with that. When he would try and teach the gospel, people would not believe in him because they only know one version of the risen Christ, where the disciples were seated together in closed doors, afraid of being attacked by people. They would lock the doors, and Christ came in through the walls. And he stood among them, and they thought he was a ghost, and they were panicking. And he showed them holes in his hands, and they came and touched him. So people today are expecting Jesus Christ to come back with holes in his hands. And when Christ comes back in another person, they don't take that version because it is not emphasized enough in the church. But I'm going to emphasize it from now on. 2 Corinthians chapter 13, starting from verse 1 up until verse 5. Final warnings. That's the heading. Final warnings. This is the third time I am coming to you. Every charge must be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. This is Paul talking to the church of the Corinthians, and he's telling them about this thing. I warned those who sinned before and all the others, and I warn them now while absent, as I did when present on my second visit, that if I come again, I will not spare them. So now he is warning these guys. What is he warning them for? Let us read. Since you seek proof that Christ is speaking in me, he is not weak in dealing with you, but is powerful among you. So now these people, they wanted proof. Even after Paul did so many things that people could not do, only Christ could do. You know, when Elijah came back as Elisha, the prophets did not hesitate as soon as they saw him parting the Jordan. They came and bowed down to him and said, the spirit of Elijah is now resting on Elisha. Because they knew that only Elijah could part the Jordan. But now Paul, after he parted the Jordan and started doing things that only Christ could do, they wanted proof. For he was crucified in weakness, but lives by the power of God. For we also are weak in him, but in dealing with you, we will live with him by the power of God. Examine yourselves to see whether you are in faith. Test yourselves. Or do you not realize this about yourselves? That Jesus Christ is in you, unless indeed you fail to meet the test. I am telling you that the church is failing to meet this test because they don't want to believe in the risen Christ in another person. They want Christ to come back with holes in his hands. Luke 24, starting from verse 13 up until verse 35. This is when Christ came back as a different person on the road to Emmaus. That very day, 2 of them were going to a village named Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they were talking with each other about all these things that had happened. Now, these 2 guys are walking on the road to Emmaus. They are discussing the things that had happened in Jerusalem because, you know, after the death of Christ, this thing became a topic. After the rising of Christ, this thing became a serious conversation. This was trending at that time. While they were talking and discussing together, Jesus himself, listen, Jesus himself drew near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. This thing is clear. It says it is Jesus himself. But let me take you to the book of Mark so that we can hear the gospel according to Mark, because what we are reading now, it is according to Luke. Let's hear what Mark says about the same story. Mark 16, verse 12 to 13. After these things, he appeared in another form to 2 of them as they were walking into the country. And they went back and told the rest, but they did not believe them. In another form, he appeared in another form. The first form that they knew, he did not come with that form. If they knew Jesus as a Jewish guy, maybe he came back as a Chinese guy. Maybe he came back as an Indian. Maybe he came back as somebody else. Let's carry on. And he said to them, "What is this conversation that you are holding with each other as you walk?" So now Jesus himself is talking to these guys, but they are not recognizing him. Even when he speaks, mind you, these people are people that are serious followers of Jesus Christ. They can't even recognize the voice. They can't even recognize the face, because Mark says he came in another form, not the first one that they know. And he said to them, "What is this conversation you are holding with each other as you walk?" And they stood still, looking sad. Now, these guys are people who loved Jesus. They were sad when this person is asking them, because he is reminding them of the pain and trauma that had just happened in Jerusalem. Then one of them, named Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know these things that have happened there in these days?" Imagine, these guys, they think this person is a visitor. He does not look like he is a person from around there. Are you the only visitor? Imagine. And he said to them, "What things?" And they said to him, "Concerning Jesus of Nazareth, a man who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death and crucified him. Even me, I would be sad if a person I was following, a person I loved, a person that helped me with all my problems, had just been crucified. I would go and become sad when somebody asks me what happened. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel." Yes, and besides all this, it is now the third day since these things happened. So now, after 3 days, now it is the third day since these things happened. After they crucified Jesus, these guys are walking and crying and mourning on the street, talking to a stranger and telling the stranger what had happened. Moreover, some women of our company amazed us. Now they are telling this person another version now that came with women. Listen. They were at the tomb early in the morning, and when they did not find his body, they came back saying that they had even seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. So now the women are saying, "We saw a vision." When they went to the tomb and did not find Jesus, people think that the people found angels there. No, this verse, it says, they came back saying that they had even seen a vision. They saw a vision of angels who said that he was alive. So it was a vision, not a real life thing. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the woman had said, but him they did not see. But when they went there to the tomb, really, the body of Jesus was not there. But the women saw a vision while they were there. And he said to them, "O foolish ones, and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken." So now Jesus is starting to tell these guys about the gospel. He's opening the Bibles now. "Was it not necessary that the Christ should suffer these things and enter into his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. So now he is telling them about the gospel. Now he's preaching to these guys, quoting Moses, quoting Isaiah, quoting Jeremiah. So they drew near to the village to which they were going. He acted as if he was going farther, but they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, for it is towards evening, and the day is now fast spent." So now these guys were with Jesus for a long time on the road. They were walking and talking, and he was opening Bible verses for them. But they are not yet aware that this person that we are talking to is Jesus. So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread and blessed and broke it and gave it to them. Now he even went to their house where they were, and he started eating with them. So now the question is, will you be able to recognize Christ if he comes to you in another form? Or do you want Christ with holes in his hands? And their eyes were opened and they recognized him. And he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, did not our hearts burn within us while he talked to us on the road, while he opened to us the scriptures? So now, these guys, they say, did not our hearts burn inside? Because now sometimes, when Christ is speaking, you just feel it inside of your heart. It starts burning while Christ is talking to you. And they rose that same hour and returned to Jerusalem. And they found the 11 and those who were with them gathered together, saying, the Lord has risen indeed and has appeared to Simon. Then they told what had happened on the road, as he was known to them in the breaking of the bread. Listen to how he was known to them in the breaking of the bread. So they recognized him by the way he breaks the bread, the way he shares the gospel. It is not right for it is not right to take the children's bread and cast it unto the dogs. So now the bread is the gospel. Man shall not live alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. So the bread is food for the spirit. The way he was breaking the bread, they could realize that, no, this is Jesus. Because they know Jesus, he speaks with authority. They know that no one can interpret scriptures just as Jesus does. Only Jesus can interpret scriptures like that. Only Jesus can speak and we can feel the fire burning in us. Only Jesus can speak and we can start feeling movements in us. Only Jesus can speak and the weight can be lifted off our shoulders. Only Jesus can speak and people can receive healing. When he was speaking with them, that is how they got to realize that this was Jesus Christ. But the face was a face of a different person. I hope next time we will be able to recognize Christ when he is in another person. Khotso a ebelele na.